Hello, BookTube. You know, despite the fact that it's black as twilight and freezing cold here in Boston, we are only 2 weeks away from June. And the beginning of June is when Wonder Woman comes to theaters. Premiering first, I think, in China to ensure a multi-million-dollar opening day, and then in America. It's Wonder Woman's first big screen movie. And thanks to a friend of mine, an old friend of mine works in Hollywood, and months ago she sent me the screener for the movie that had everything except the green screen, everything except the post production special effects. And then just recently she sent me a screener for the whole movie, and it's terrific. It's absolutely terrific. It's by far the best DC Universe movie that's ever been done in terms of timing, pacing, comedy, acting performances, special effects, the oomph of it as you're leaving the theater. You don't feel when you're leaving the theater like you're questioning anything basic about what you thought about the character. You're not wondering, did I just watch a movie in which Batman straight up kills dozens and dozens of people? You're not leaving the theater with a heavy heart in tears because a city has been laid waste and everyone's dead and the greatest superhero of them all commits cold-blooded murder because he can't think of a way not to. Instead, it's got just the right oomph, and the key is that it's a different oomph, a different feeling than the Marvel Cinematic Universe feeling. It's bigger, it's got a heavier tread, it's grander, and I like that, of course, because that's what I like about DC just in general. And I've been waiting a long time for this. I thought I would make a quick video plugging it for you. Now I did this once before in 2011. I spent a long time online and in person plugging Conan the Barbarian, which is a terrific movie, a fantastic realization of Robert E. Howard's character. And it didn't work. Movie-going audiences stayed away from Conan the Barbarian in droves, and that's a little depressing. That was depressing at the time. I had a personal stake in that movie. I don't have one in this movie, but I'm plugging it anyway. And all parties involved in that Conan movie landed on their feet anyway. So I'm not too broken up about it. Although in an ideal world, I wish we were on our fourth Conan movie. That would be great. But this Wonder Woman movie has a lot in common with that. The more I thought about it, the more I thought about my doomed PR attempt to get people to see Conan the Barbarian, the more I realized how much they have in common, which is mainly that both characters have been largely misunderstood and sloppily and imprecisely interpreted over the years since their creation. So, and with Wonder Woman, it's particularly annoying because she was created right. It's not always that way. Superman, of course, she's one of DC Comics' Trinity, Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, the most popular, best known superheroes in the world. Mutant fads come and go. Your friendly neighborhood webhead comes and goes. But Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman are forever, and everyone knows them. You can go to a small village in Nigeria, and they immediately know what you're talking about. The kids do. It's almost a mythological quality. And that was an ad hoc thing with Superman. When he begins, he's just a circus tough guy. That's all we know about him. It's amazing that it caught on at all, except that it was a trailblazer. But he has only limited superpowers, and he's kind of a bully. He wants his own way, and he wants his own way not necessarily because it's right, but because he says so. And he can tear down a door, and you can't. And the same thing with Batman. He's in his initial run in Detective Comics. You don't really see the appeal. You certainly, reading those issues, they're reprinted all the time. DC's just done a lovely reformatted, cleaned up reprint of the initial run of Batman, the first exposure that comic book fans had to this character, and the first chance they had to decide whether or not they wanted him to be popular, whether or not they wanted to keep reading about him. And in those early encounters, you don't understand. I mean, he's grim and stiff and hypocritical and forbidding, but not in an interesting way. It's like somebody turned a comic book over to a villain. just briefly. Now, the germ of that is what made him so popular, but nobody knew that at the time. Superman and Batman, is what I'm trying to say, grew into the best realizations of their character. In Superman's case, because of a man named Julie Schwartz, who I will someday do a tribute to in full length, the length he deserves. But Wonder Woman, that isn't true. Wonder Woman was created by Frederick Marston in the early 1940s, and he created her just right. He knew ahead of time. He wasn't two kids from the Midwest. He wasn't a distracted pulp hack. He made the character as an idea first and thought her out ahead of time. With an origin story, that the Hippolyta, the queen of the Amazons, desires a child and crafts one out of clay. And it's given life and superpowers by the Greek gods. And so on Paradise Island, which is populated only by Amazons, all of a sudden there's a baby. She's doted on by everybody. And she's growing up with her sister Amazons, who are all fierce warriors, and she goes through the same fighting training as they do. But unlike them, she has superpowers. And eventually, an Air Force plane crashes on Paradise Island, and its passenger, Steve Trevor, an Army captain, and then an Army major. His rank changes, but he's a dashing man from the outside world, from man's world, where the Amazons have no interest in being. They have only horrible memories of it. But Queen Hippolyta decides that a champion must be chosen to return him to man's world and bring the Amazons' message of peace and avenging wrong to the outside world. And there's a competition that's held, and at first Hippolyta forbids her daughter Diana from taking part in that competition. Diana participates in it anyway and wins, of course, and goes to the outside world and becomes Wonder Woman, takes on the mantle of Wonder Woman. And Marston is pretty clear about what her powers are. Strong as Hercules, fast as Hermes, wise as Athena, beautiful as Aphrodite. And what those mythological trappings translate to in comic book world is a character who's as powerful as Superman. A woman who's as powerful as Superman. Now, she might have all sorts of other things. The initial incarnation of Wonder Woman, of course, the famous bracelets that are bulletproof. And that her reflexes are so fast that she can block bullets with them, rather than just stand there and let them bounce off her, the way Superman does. As the character changed, one of my favorite little exchanges happens years and years, decades and decades later, when Wonder Woman is deflecting bullets and a character says to her, aren't you pretty much indestructible? Why do you do that? And she says to him, perfect line, you imagine I like getting shot? Of course he would. He would try not to. I love that line, but that was a long time in the coming. My point being that Marston created a perfectly realized character, and then the comic books took over. And when she comes to the outside world, she joins the Justice Society, the very first superhero team in the World War II era. Not as an equal, but as their secretary. And then decades later, when she's a member of the Justice League, you think, well, okay, it's slightly more enlightened times, if Mad Men is correct. Surely things will have changed, but no. No, she's the Justice League secretary as well. And you get a tiny glimpse of the level of power involved in the fact that she takes the minutes of every meeting by chiseling her fingernail into a block of stone, which Green Arrow couldn't do. It was largely a fault of unimaginative writers. They gave her one wacky adventure after another. But male comic book writers who never, in those early decades, knew quite what to make of Wonder Woman. They were constantly reducing her powers. They were constantly giving her amnesia. They were constantly hampering her in one way or another. Infamously, there was a time, I think it was in the 1960s, where she loses her Amazonian powers and dresses like Diana Rigg in the Avengers and starts kung fu kicking villains with martial arts skill. And then that's restored and dropped again, and then restored and dropped again. The three icons, those three icons, Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman, have all gone through permutations like that, where their basic game plan changes. Less so Batman in the last 40 years than either Superman or Wonder Woman, but more so Wonder Woman than anybody. uh, until we reach a writer, the great Gail Simone, who envisioned the character uh, in a lot of ways very similar to what Frederick Marston envisaged her. In the Gail Simone era of Wonder Woman, which didn't last long enough, she was an ambassador to the outside world. She was tempered, she was intelligent, she was principled, but also completely alien. She did not grow up in the modern Western world at all. And from a comic book nerd point of view, also importantly, she was every bit as powerful as Superman. No excuses, no hobbling, no special jewelry, no nothing. Just we're going to write and draw a comic book every month in which a female character is every bit as physically powerful as Superman, and we'll just have to hope the world doesn't end. And the world didn't end, but DC eventually did away with that version of the character, came up with another one that was, of course, amnesiac and almost powerless. And then the company has gone through, in recent years, lots of reinventions of its characters. The New 52 and then recently Rebirth. And Wonder Woman, of course, was hit harder than Batman or Superman when it comes to both those events. So that now I'm not even sure where the roulette wheel has finished spinning on what her origin is. I think right now her origin story is that she's a daughter of Zeus, that Zeus impregnated Hippolyta, and she's just another demigod, one of the infinite number of demigod children of Zeus. And that explains her powers or her Olympian heritage, or I haven't really followed. It seems like there are two different origin stories going. One of which we mentioned the other day, and then this one where she's just a demigod child of Zeus. In either case, the key that Fred Marston wanted was to create a female character who owed nothing to men, not even birth. So she's not Bullet Man's wacky girlfriend who's given a bullet helmet and exact duplicate powers of his, only less powerful. She's not Hawk Girl, who is a watered-down female version of Hawkman. She's not Supergirl, a teenage exact duplicate of Superman. She's not any of those things. Instead, she's a completely sui generis person. And if your father is a philandering god king, well, that idea is sort of vitiated. I don't really know what origin story the movie is going to give us. Though, of course, to have to give us a tiny glimpse of her origin story, and I couldn't really make sense of the glimpses that I saw. And I don't know what will be finessed, between now and when it comes to movie theaters, or what extra commentary the director will make as to the choices that have been made. But I can attest to the version of the character that's in the movie. Now, one of the things I don't like about the character that we see in this movie is that she is not as powerful as Superman. We've seen Superman cut loose when he tears apart his hometown fighting 3 Kryptonian supervillains because he can't think of a way to get them out of town. so he just levels the whole place. And we've seen what he can do. And the brief sequences in Dawn of Justice when Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman are all fighting Doomsday give us a pretty good idea of what in the new DC cinematic universe she can do, which is quite a bit. But I'd like it to be a bit more. It's quite a bit, but it's not as much as what Superman can do, and I don't like that. That was the original gauntlet thrown down by Wonder Woman's creation all those years ago, in the early 40s, is something that I think it's high time that I think we can deal with it without it being the end of the world. I think that DC can deal with it without their fans revolting and wanting their money back. A female superhero, not just any female superhero, but the best known female superhero of them all, who's as powerful as Superman. Without the shield, without the bracelets, without the sword. Just stand her in a field, and she's as powerful as Superman. I'm hoping that this movie leads us to that. This movie takes place in when Wonder Woman brings Steve Trevor to the outside world. It's not World War II. It's World War I. A very mysterious decision on the part of the powers that be at DC. Haven't yet been able to figure out exactly why that is. So instead of fighting Hitler and his henchmen. She fights Erich Ludendorff, the leader of the Imperial German forces, played by the great Danny Huston, who sooner or later will get. I mean, he's 60s now, but sooner or later he will get a role that makes him a household name. I don't know why it hasn't happened yet, because he's fantastic. All the acting power of the Huston family, but somehow without grabbing headlines. And he plays Ludendorff. And I don't honestly don't. I mean, he does his best villainous glowering in the movie, but I honestly don't know why they didn't make him in the movie look the way Ludendorff looked in real life. In real life, he looks like a supervillain, like a comic book supervillain. He's actually watered down in the movie. But in the movie, it's World War One, and I think that the decision there might be to set up the world-weary, long-retired Wonder Woman that we meet in Dawn of Justice. I think that could easily have been served by World War II as well, and that would preserve an essential part of the character's comic book timeline. Either way, we're in brand new territory when it comes to the DC Comics version of Wonder Woman. And I just hope that it catches on. I really do. I loved it. I love the movie. I've watched it 4 or 5 times. And the acid test, for me, because when it's big extravaganza movies like this, all I care about is the eye candy. I don't expect anything like good writing in a superhero movie. And the acid test of how much I like this movie is the fact that I liked it even without the special effects. For the snap of the dialogue, for the snap of the acting. So I'm really hoping this movie catches on. I will be very disappointed if on June, I mean, it opens on June 2nd in America. I'll be very disappointed if the following week it's starting to get cast as another Suicide Squad, or you can see the easy blog headlines of Wonder Woman steps up to the plate, strikes out, that sort of thing. I'm really hoping that I don't see that. I'm hoping that fans coronate it as a success, and I'm hoping that it garners a lot of non-fan moviegoers, because they'll love it. You don't need to be a comic book fan to like this. Whereas, what sense could you possibly have made of Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice if you weren't a comic book fan? I maintain none at all. In fact, one of the times that I saw it very, very ill-advisedly in a theater. And in the row right next to me, a 10-year-old kid asked his father, why are Batman and Superman fighting? What's this movie about? If he had asked those same questions in the movie's pitch meeting in Hollywood, none of the executives around the table would have been able to answer him. I couldn't answer him. I'd seen the thing 2 times since then. This movie isn't like that. So I'm really hoping that it catches on. And that's essentially the point of this little video, is just to plug it. I never done that before on this channel, but I wholeheartedly recommend the movie. I think you will really like it. So I'll get back to books in no time at all. Thank you, BookTube.